Right. Okay. We are on live, so we are on air. So we are ready to start the session. So it's okay. 5 hours 2 minutes. So which means okay. Uh, Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen, all around the world. So today it's an interesting session. So the difference is on Friday. So on the 3rd of July, we start a discussion with Roy Anderson, a very professional educator in the world. Then on 4th July, on Saturday, we heard the voice of the children. So all around the world, kids around the world, they raised their voice. So we had a discussion with the professionals, and then we heard about the children. Now today is a different session. Today, the children, they are going to meet the professionals, and they are going to meet face to face, and they are going to have a discussion with each other. So that's what we are going to do. So welcome everyone. So first of all, before start, I have Professor Michael Gebauer from Germany, and we have Senuji Gunatilaka. So first of all, I would like to say, Senuji, can you introduce yourself? So then we can start the session. So in brief, can you introduce about yourself?
Hello, I'm Senuji Gunatilaka. I'm a student from Colombo International School, Kandy, which is in Sri Lanka. And I am a student and I'm currently moving to year 12. And I just finished my IGCSEs and yeah.
Thank you very much, Senuji. So now the session is up to Mr. Professor Michael Gebauer and Senuji Gunatilaka. So hope that you will enjoy a lot. Okay, thank you very much. It's up to you. Over to you, Senuji.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, Professor Michael Gebauer. Before we start, we would like if you can give us a small introduction about yourself so that all of us present here today can get to know you better.
Yes, thank you very much for the invitation. It's a pleasure and an honor for me to participate in this online conference about democratic education, about transition in education, what's democratic education. And I would like to start with a few remarks on myself, on my biography. I'm working at the University of Halle, which is pretty much in the center of Germany. Presently, I'm an academic teacher training for primary and special needs teachers who will become teachers, students who will become teachers. And I'm basically teaching science and environmental education and sustainable development. These are my topics. And looking backwards, I had the opportunity to study quite a lot before I took up my professional life. So I started with the studies of anthropology, cultural anthropology, and English language and ethnology. And then I moved on to biology with a focus on ecology. And after that, I already had a degree at the university, a diploma. And then I started academic teacher training to become a teacher myself for biology, chemistry, and English language. And after that, I did my second phase of professionalization and actually became a teacher for around about 10 years at a comprehensive school in Germany. And besides that, at the same time, I worked on my PhD. And after around about 10 years, I left the school system, so to say, to work at the university. And then I moved on from one to another university and ended up in my present profession, so to say, as an academic teacher trainer.
Mr. Michael, you joined the democratic education movement about 20 years ago, and also you are a founder of a democratic school. Can you tell us more about your involvement in the democratic education movement?
Yes. Yeah. Around about 20 years ago, I started to work at the University of Leipzig. I became a professor there at the time in the same profession, academic teacher training. And in Leipzig, there was at that time, and there still is, a very well-established democratic school. The Leipzig Free School is called in translation, so to say. And I thought it would be good and for the future for my students if they had a practical insight into democratic education at such a school. So I set up a collaboration with this school, which went on for many years, and we regularly went there and took part in the process of teaching and learning in this school, me and my students. And so we built up a network. And at that time, there were very few democratic schools in Germany, very few democratic, really well-established democratic schools at that age all over the world. One hotspot of democratic education at that time was Israel, because for certain reasons, because of the diversity of the society and so on. And the IDEC, International Democratic Education Conference, was already established as a regular event, as a network, invented by Jakob Hecht and some others at that time. And yeah, so, and we thought, me and some people from this movement, from Summerhill School in England, from Sand School in England, and from German democratic schools, we thought it would be, or might be, a good idea to establish the same network in Europe. Yeah, and it was basically something like 15, 16 years ago, we started to invent or to create the European Democratic Education Community, and run the first democratic education conference in Europe, the UDEC, which actually took place at that time at my university where I worked, and we had a very good experience at that time. So these were my first steps into democratic education, joining this network, creating this European Democratic Education Community network, and setting up the first European Democratic Education Conference. Later on, in the meantime, I was asked to become a academic supervisor, academic advisor, better, for the Association of Free or Democratic Schools in Germany. So it happened that schools asked me to help them develop their concepts and to, so to say, I support them in the process of getting acknowledged or getting the permission to run a school. Yeah, and it happened that at that time, one school which was located not very far from the school where I had worked before as a teacher myself, and where I had spent most of the time of my life, asked me to support them in their process, and I did that, and for certain reasons it was successful. The school was given the admission to run or to start. And it was necessary. This is a bureaucracy thing. So to somehow to find a headmaster, a principal for such a school, and I was because of my biography, because of my experience as a teacher, my record and stuff, I was able to do this, to become to become the, so to say, headmaster or principal of this school, which actually democratic schools don't have a such thing as a principal. It's a more or less a formal or bureaucratic requirement. Yeah, and so we started to run the school. I had to split up my work time. I worked 2 days every week at this school and 3 days at the university for a while, which was pretty much okay for me. Yeah, that was my experience in creating a democratic school. No, and since then, I would just one last sentence, and I'll finish with this topic, so to say. Since then, I'm still in this movement, so to say. I'm still advising or giving advice to schools and supporting schools which are in the process to transform or to in transition to become a democratic schools, or who will who are in the process of starting a new school. So this is my present situation.
Okay. Since we have been discussing about democratic education, can you please explain to us what democratic schools are and what their importance is in today's world?
Okay, this is a complex question. What are democratic schools? When we take a look at all the so-called democratic schools all over the world, we will find a wide range of understanding what a democratic school is, in fact, or how it looks like. Yeah, but there are a few things they all have in common, or most of them have in common. There's one simple message which goes one woman or one man, one vote, so to say. So everyone who is involved in the system, in the setting of the school, the kids, the teachers, the staff, and everyone, they can vote on decisions which need to be taken in order to run the school. Yeah, and I would like to divide this up, and I think this will be like a guideline in the following questions. It makes a big difference whether you see a democratic school development, so to say, as the democracy in education as a process, or a way of governance, or a set of rules, principles, and agreements on how to handle decision making and everyday situations. And I think the democratic schools are, so to say, or you can find those two different traits in democratic schools. Yeah, on a governance level, there are well-established committees and school meetings, so to say, like in other democratic settings, like in governments of countries. So to say, we find almost the same kind of structure. Yeah, because there are different responsibilities, different decisions which need to be made, and so on and so on. There, and you find those hardwired structures, so to say. And then there is this process of living democracy, yeah, of everyday life, which should better be called participation, which is a very common term in this discussion now. That means that all those people who are involved in this setting or this system have the possibility, have the right, and have the ability and have the access to create processes of development, processes of decision making, processes of counseling, processes of reflecting on topics. So that you can say it's both. A democratic school has a certain structural elements, hardwired elements, which are very much the same like in a democratic governments. And there's a everyday process of participation of democratic, so to say, creation of a situation where, and the setting where people are teaching and learning.
So we all can say that change is needed in our education systems. Even the smallest change can have the biggest impact. However, it's not easy to make such changes. There are a lot of challenges that we all face. And one of the main challenges that we face is by society. Professor, can you explain to us this?
Well, I would add it's not only society, it's also the culture. I
Yes.
would like to make a difference between society or socio-economical life or um, going on, and the deep structure of a culture. Yeah, I would like to give try to point out those two aspects of the problem. Uh, First of all, concerning society, so we are the world is in a rapid transition towards globalization, uh, and there are a few, or there are some really essential problems which we need to solve for the future to create a life without inequality, or to somehow to handle the problem of inequality in the world. They have the problem of discrimination, of separation, not a problem, but the fact of diversity, so that we can create a worldwide culture of understanding and of support and of, so to say, moving forward towards a society that is respecting a few fundamental, so to a worldwide society, so to say, a worldwide understanding of certain essentials which are necessary to be invented for the future, or to be developed more than they are now. I just would like to mention for me, the most important aspects are to handle diversity, cultural diversity, social diversity, individual diversity, so to say, and to find a way to integrate this to a fruitful future for all of us. The second thing is that it's absolutely necessary to somehow to find a way for a future it could be described, or that is this integrating sustainable development concerning the environmental problems we all have all over the world. And the third major aspect is actually the process of developing democratic or participating structures in all parts of society. And these things are all linked together, to say. So we don't have this understanding anymore that that governments are able to handle all these problems, but people are. It's necessary that all people who make up a society or whatever a social system are responsible to create this future altogether. And this requires completely new competences, new ways of negotiating processes and decisions and things like that. And I think that democratic schools are the perfect environment for cultivating such competences. Yeah, we all need for the future, and it's necessary. You can imagine it's necessary to start as early as possible. Yeah, to invent democratic structures, to invent participation as early as possible, even in kindergarten, even in preschool systems, so to say, to give children as early as possible the possibility to participate in the creation of their learning environment, of their social environment, and to get an understanding why all this is necessary to create a better future life. Okay. I hope this answers your question.
Yes. So although changing the education system is quite difficult, the benefits of changing it can be numerous. These include personal development, which is extremely important for students, and also competence, which, because if efficiency is improved, it can be helpful for both students and teachers. Professor, can you throw light on this point, please?
Yes, sorry, could you please repeat this, because a little bit louder? I can read it, of course. I've got it on sheet of paper, but I would like to hear your voice again. I know it's a pretty long phrase, but I didn't get you very well.
Although changing the education system is quite difficult, the benefits are numerous. These include personal development, which is extremely important for students, and even competence. Because if efficiency is improved, it is important for students and teachers. Professor, it would be very helpful if you can throw some light on this point.
Yes, okay. So the benefits are numerous. That's right. The benefits for society in the long run, for the whole world, so to say, for the whole human race is enormous. The benefits for the personal development for each and every people who's involved in such a system, who has given who gets the opportunity to unfold their individual potentials in learning environments which are democratically structurized is very important, and the competences which the students are able to or could acquire or can acquire in this setting are very numerous. I would like to point out a few things just mentioned briefly, so to say. Let's start with the personal development. Yeah, I think the major concern of, not the major only, but one of the major concerns of education and teaching is to enhance or to support personal or individual development. Yeah, and to do this, in order to do this, it's necessary to offer in teaching and learning, to offer a learning environment. I would like to stick to the concept of learning environment, so to say, which is very important for the understanding of democratic schools in this case. So democratic schools where people are, or where students are given the opportunity to participate in processes of decision making, where students are given the opportunity to choose their own way of learning, yeah, where students are given the opportunity to create their own relationships with the people, with the teachers or with teaching staff and other people involved into this system. It gives them a quite a huge amount of self-determination in so to say, in creating their individual learning biography. Yeah, this opportunity to find out what am I good at, so to say, where are my strong points, which are my virtues, and so on and so on. The learning environments in democratic schools are specifically designed to support this positive feedback about the individual potentials of the students. So this is one of the major benefits for each and every person who's involved in the system, especially for the students. And it's also a benefit for the teachers, because I know this from my own experience. I know this from all the situations I've experienced in schools with my students, with classes, and so on and so on. It's such a relief for a teacher when the teaching process is structured in a democratic way, that there's not the whole it's not that only that, but the whole responsibility for this situation is put on the teacher, but is distributed on all those who are involved into this setting, so to say, and it makes it necessary. Such a setting requires a very good personal relationship. Yeah, it's all based on a personal relationship that is trustful, that is non-violent, that is dialogic. So teaching gets a completely new structure, and from all the research we know, this has such a tremendous positive effect on the self-perception of teaching competences of teachers. Yeah, so it's traditional, so to say, the traditional pedagogics is thinking that teachers always have to take control of the situation that's going to happen. But this is really exhausting in the long run. Yeah, always trying to take control or keep control over the situations. It is much more fruitful and much more relaxing. We can even say relaxing for a teacher and satisfying for a teacher. Yeah, to say to be part of such a learning environment. Well, the people feel responsible for their own development, for the progress in learning, for the cultivation of this environment, and so on and so on. And of course, it's even more, it's a huge benefit for a society, Yeah, when students have made this experience that they can take on responsibility, that they have the so to say the capacity and the skills and the competences, yeah, to create as a model their learning environment, to create social systems, so to say, to be part of the process of problem solving, so to say, in social or economical or ecological situations. And therefore this is the fundamental, so to say, benefit is that people, and we need all those people for the for future of humanity, so to say, will be able and will be willing and motivated to take part in processes to make life better and create a better life.
Professor, earlier you explained to us the importance of democratic schools. Thus, why is it vital that more and more schools transform towards democratic education?
Yeah, I think I already said something about that before. Yeah, it's I think it's important. Which I've just said. Okay, transformation. So basically the answers I gave you before, what are the benefits for the individual, for society, for the social system, even for the teachers, for the school as a whole system, as a social system itself, so to say. You can also say all those benefits would also be answers to this question. And more and more schools. Okay, this is I think it's obvious, yeah, that as long as the situation now is that democratic education makes up only a very small part of there are only very few democratic schools all over the world. Some countries have only very few schools, some others have gotten more schools, and this is not a very strong movement right now. Yeah, it differs from country to country, that's true, but in general it's not a very strong movement, and it's also a marginalized movement. It's marginalized by the state, so to say, the official or state school system, and therefore it's to unfold all the power, the creativity, the potentials of the democratic school movement and of democratic schools and all those benefits I've named before. It's necessary that oh, excuse me. Yeah, that more and more schools make the transition to a more democratic way of teaching and learning and running the schools, so that we get in the future we will get a very powerful movement, which will be able to change or to push the not only the system, the school systems into a new or into this direction of more of democratic teaching and learning, but also has also an impact on the whole society, on the understanding of learning processes, on the understanding of the meaning of self-motivation, of responsibility for your own learning process, of the importance of competences which will be necessary to create societies or social systems. And therefore, it's really important and crucial that that more and more democratic schools make the transition towards democratic systems.
Mr. Marco, could you explain to us the main principles, values, and goals of transforming schools towards democratic education?
Well, this is a complex question. Okay, I would try. I can only point out a few aspects of this, because this would fill a whole a book, or even more than one, so to say. Let's start with the main principles, values, and goals. Okay, principle. As I pointed out, one of the principle is that the students in democratic schools, the democratic schools provide an learning environment where the students have the option, the possibility to decide for themselves what they learn, yeah, when, with whom, in which order, and things like that, so that they can create their own personal curriculum, yeah, which is of course supported by a structure which is provided by the school as well as structure, time-wise, and consisting of offers or classes or courses or whatever on specific subjects, like math, languages, and art, and so on. This is it's a main principle that no one is at any point forced into anything. Yeah, so that that students always have the ability, the possibility to decide on themselves what they are learning, in which setting, and so on and so on. But of course, this it makes it necessary that there's a good support system. And though I move on, this is only one short aspect, but I per se I will point out a few things, so I can move on to the next point: values. Okay, let's say there's one so to say mandatory set of values which is based on the basic human rights, on the children's rights, on the rights of disabled people, on women's rights, and stuff like that. All those documents, so to say, we have generated in history, so to say, to support people who need support, women, disabled people, kids, children, and so on and so on. So these fundamental rights are the basis of values for such a school, and it should be the basis of values for every school, and it should be the basis of values for every social system and society. But apart from that, there is a very specific and important point I would like to point out concerning values. Apart from those basic rights, okay, and this is the point of how to create human relationships, because as we know from scientific studies and a lot of record, that the personal relationship between students and teachers, between students and those who create the learning environment, I would like to say, is essential for the success in learning, is essential for the well-being of all the people involved into the system. Yeah, and therefore the main values regarding the creation of personal relationships in such schools is based on what we call, it's based on nonviolent communication. Yeah, it's based on non-hierarchical social understanding. It's based on what we call dialogic teaching. That means that you really people are entering. It's not a one-directional way of communication, but it's really a give and take in communication. And I think there are a few more aspects of this what makes up a really good and supportive relationship between students and teachers. But I think we should focus on the values which, so to say, cultivate the relationships between the people in this social setting of a democratic or of any school. Good. And now I move on to goals. Yeah, what are the goals? We already mentioned some of the goals. Personal, so to say, or let's start from the basics, so to say. So basic goals, of course, are at the very basic level is well-being, so to say, feeling feeling welcome in such a setting, and the space to unfold the individual potentials. And before you can unfold an individual potential, you have to find out about it. What am I good at, so to say? What are my virtues? And so this is one of the goals, to create such an environment where this is possible, where people feel acceptable, feel support, where they're given the space to find out about and develop their individual potentials. And then on the next level, one of the goals is to provide or create these learning environments, with certain qualities of communication, certain qualities of office, of experience, certain qualities of experience, I would say, certain qualities of social interaction, and so on and so on. So I would say, and the final goals is so to say, to give the students or the people in the school the space, so to say, for self-development, for self-fulfillment, for well-being, to unfold their individual competences, and link this together. And now I come to another level, not individually, but as part of a social system, as part of a community, yeah, as part of people who have a shared responsibility to create a space of learning, yeah, to create a space of evolvement or evolution, individual and collective evolution. This is another major goal, and in the end, all this the goal above all is then, so to say, to give the people or the students also to somehow to provide them with the tools and competences and skills to create a society where people can live together in dignity and in respect and a kind of supportive harmony. I think this is a hierarchy of goals, values, and principles, which is important for every school, but especially significant for democratic schools.
Professor, in your opinion, if schools decide to transform their educational methods to democratic education, should it be a democratic decision? Should everyone in a school, including students, be included in this decision? And what are the resilience measures that can be taken? And also, how can the development plan of transforming schools into democratic schools be made more sustainable?
Okay, to answer your first question, so to say, should it be a democratic decision?
Yes.
I would definitely say yes. It should be a democratic decision where all people involved into this setting are part of or participating, so to say. Democratic processes need some kind of experience in democratic practice. Yeah, and I would say this whole school could be also be seen as a field of experience for democratic decision making and democratic interaction or participation, as you can say. So my final answer is definitely yes. And then should everybody in the school students be included in this decision making? Yeah, I would come to the question: why should anyone be excluded? Is there any reason, or could you give any reason why anyone could be or should be excluded from decision making? I think no. When it's a shared responsibility and a process, and democracy is seen as a process, a constant process of evolution. Yeah, it will never reach a final state of or a finalization, so to say, but will also always be in process. New people will join in, people will leave the system, and so on and so on. So it's a continuous process, ongoing process, and therefore I think it's absolutely necessary that all people who are involved into the system, included in the, should be included in decision making, and. Yeah, what is the next question?
What the resilience measures should be.
Could you please explain what's the meaning of this, or what's the connection of this specific part of the question to the question before?
Like
I didn't get it.
the ways we can adapt measures that a school can take, because it's the first time a school will be converting, so they will need ways of adapting.
Do you mean how they have a so to say means of control or feedback? Something, anything like that? A feedback culture?
Yes, it's more of adapting to democratic education.
This feedback culture, you mean?
Yes.
I don't know if I get the question right. This is
Yes,
my
it's that. That's
now.
what I meant.
So yeah, if I get it right, then we're talking about a feedback culture, so to say. This is an essential part of processes, of democratic processes, of processes of participation, so to say. That there are several, so to say, stages of feedback, or several ways and means of giving or exchanging feedback or requiring feedback. I think this is absolutely essential to when we regard this, or when we consider this as an ongoing process. Yeah, so to say, every process, especially when people are involved, so in social systems, requires, so to say, certain tools of feedback, or a feedback culture, so that at any point people can make a stop and say, take a look at our process now. Yeah, where we are good at, where it's evolving into the right direction, where do we have to make some corrections or rethink something. So this is an absolutely essential tool and yeah, part of this process, a reflexive part of this whole process of transition. Okay. There was another question, how this process of transformation can be made more sustainable. Yeah, this is not an easy question, so to say. Yeah, more sustainable would mean, first of all, that democratic schools are accepted, or so to say, get the recognition they deserve for being part of the evolution of teaching and learning, so to say. Yeah, this is one point. It is necessary that the society, so to say, values it more than it does until now, or takes notice of such processes. And to make it more sustainable, it's necessary. It's a necessary process to make it sustainable, of course, let's say. But I think it's always in transition. So to say, our understanding of teaching and learning, our understanding of children as learning subjects, is always in a process of transition, so to say. And so we have to point out what is worth to be made sustainable, and what is in a constant process of evolution. Yeah, I would like to explain this and use an example from our understanding, our transition in our understanding of learning. Yeah, our understanding of children as learning subjects, so to say. We had it for a long period of time, and this was also the time when the democratic movement, a democratic education movement, so to say, started to be really successful. Let's say during the last 10 or 15 years, we had this paradigm of constructivism in learning. And this refers also to one of your next questions, so to say. So we had a paradigm of understanding that each and every person is creating their own way of learning, so to say, and creating their own her or his own curriculum, and has this self-directed way of learning. Yeah, this is the constructivist paradigm of the understanding of learning. So there was the basic sort of assumption behind that. Yeah, and the outcome, or it's materialized in the concept of personalized learning. Yeah. Personalized learning is just what I just tried to explain. It means that each and every student has his or her unique way and path of learning. Has a certain is described by a certain learning type, and so on and so on. Yeah, this is this paradigm which, so to say, promoted personalized learning. Over the last 5 years or so, or a few years, there was an ongoing process. We moved on to an understanding of learning, which is described by the word connectivism, so to say. Another understanding of learning, that learning is a process that is based on networks of people who are exchanging information, who are also taking part in the research of information. So it's not anymore, it's not personalized only anymore, but it's so to say, it's learning in a community and a network of people who are motivated to solve problems and to get to achieve knowledge and competences and so on. And therefore, to make it sustainable, to come back to this question, means that it is necessary to follow these so to say, different these movements or changes, and direct towards that in the understanding of teaching and learning, so that we can find out what was the core structure, so to say, what are the essentials, and in which way do we have to adapt this system, though it's an ongoing process, which is in the end will be sustainable. Okay. I hope this was, it's a bit difficult to explain this. I hope you understood my explanation.
Yes.
Thank you.
Professor, how should teaching and learning be organized in schools, following the education idea of democratic education?
Well, okay, this is, all those questions are very complex, and so I can only point out a few aspects all the time. How should teaching and learning be organized? So the basic assumption is that this whole system is democratic, so decision making and so on is made according to democratic or sociocratic principles. This is the basic assumption, and then we move on to I move on to this question: how should learning be organized? So I already mentioned we need to find a balance between personalized learning and learning in networks. Yeah, so the setting should be designed, or the learning environments should offer opportunities, so to say, for phases and times and space for personalized process of personalized learning, but it should always be connected to this network understanding of learning, and should be connected to the social, so to say, social needs all people have to reflect themselves or mirror themselves others, or get from other people, or get support from other people. So from a social feedback culture, from the feeling of being socially embedded, so to say. Just wait a second. Okay. Next step is how should it be organized? Because we have in our culture, in the history of our culture, we have created different subjects. We have they created several different disciplines of science and so on and so on. So we've got a diverse world of a multitude of different domains of knowledge. Yeah, and it's essential. So this is what in a regular school what we call subjects. Yeah. So this is essential to make offers, because this is the outcome of a historical process according to the needs of people to create their environments, to live their lives, and to create social lives and so on. And so we have to, and now I'm close at the question, we have to create a learning environment that offers all those different perspectives on different domains of science, of different subjects, on different self-representations of human beings. Yeah, I personally am very fond of Howard Gardner's perspective on multiple intelligences. I don't know if you're familiar with this concept, but this is for me. This is for the present, and I think for the near future, this is the most fruitful, so to say, background for structure for the creation of learning environments. So. The concept of multiple intelligence is so to say stating that among human beings we find different profiles of intelligence, okay, of giftedness. Huh? So language, math, art, nature, interpersonal, intrapersonal, and so on and so on and so on. Altogether 10 aspects or 10 dimensions of human intelligence, as it's called, and also the 10 principal or most important dimensions of social and cultural life. And I think, in my opinion, it's necessary, and in some ways schools did that by creating subjects. It's necessary to offer learning environments with all their qualities I tried to describe before, learning environments that represent or offer experiences, opportunities to learn, to enter in processes of acquiring knowledge, understanding, skills, competences, according to these dimensions of the human culture and of the human nature, you can almost say. Yeah. So it should be. To answer this question precisely, learning environments in democratic schools, but in every school, should be designed according to a system where people can choose freely what to learn. This is in a way of personalized learning, but also with the understanding that learning is happening in kind of a network of people supporting each other, providing information and providing knowledge and competences and so on and so on. And it should be structured by offering these different dimensions of the basic dimensions of the human culture, so that all the students have the opportunity and have the fields of personal experience to find out what their potentials are, what they are good at, what's inside of them, which virtues are, so to say, at the heart of theirs. This is my answer to the question.
Mr. Michael, when running at democratic schools, how can individual potentials be supported?
Yeah, well, I think I already answered this question, and it was a part of my answer to the previous question somehow, but I will try to make it to answer it pretty briefly, so to say. How can individual potentials be supported in democratic schools? I would just say by creating learning environments which are would welcome diversity, yeah, which offer the maximum participate in all processes, in all the processes of a decision making, to say, which offer a multitude of fields of experience in different aspects of our culture. And this is the last point which I didn't point out as enough. We already talked about this feedback culture. So all this is becoming very fruitful, or is really getting powerful when people get when students, so to say, get a valid feedback, not only from a teacher. No, this is this hierarchical system that teacher tells someone, okay, you're good at this and that, and not so good at this and that. This is not what I mean, but a system of feedback. And we have invented comes from the state school, from the regular school system, so to say. We're working with even at several democratic schools I know personally. We are working with competence grids, so to say, where the students can describe for themselves what they're good at, and what they have, which they have to improve, or what they have to improve. So feedback culture should give the students the possibility to reflect on their own process of learning, yeah, to support this self-reflection and support epistemological thinking and things like that, so that there is a well-balanced mixture of feedback from the teachers, so to say. I use this term now, and tools for the students to reflect on their own process of learning and of acquirement of knowledge and competences and so on. This is a very, very important point, in my opinion.
Professor, what should the basic assumptions of democratic learning be when running a democratic school?
Yeah, the basic assumptions. We already mentioned all of them, I think, in this interview. Maybe we can try to summarize some of them. The basic assumptions, so to say. The basic assumptions, as we said before, that all people who are involved into the system are part of are participating in decision making. Yeah, so no one is excluded. They all decide on what's going to happen in the school, even the basic organization stuff, and so on and so on. This is, let's say, one of the basic assumptions. The second basic assumption is that according to personalized learning paradigm, that no one is forced to do anything, yeah, or can be forced to do anything, but it's always based on the free will on one say, and individual decision, yeah, when, where, what, and how, and in which way he or she wants to learn something, or to acquire certain competences. But that there is also, which is a basic assumption, that there is the need, the school has got the responsibility to provide a thorough system of support, which is mainly on the personal level, yeah, on the personal level of interaction between students and teachers, so to say, but also should provide a certain reliable structure, yeah, which is transparent for all the students, for all the teachers in the school, what happens at what time, when, and where, and so on and so. Always under the assumption that no one is forced at any time to do anything right now, or there are no tools or means of punishment, so in democratic schools. This basically doesn't exist. Yeah, so this is another basic assumption, and another basic assumption is, and that on a personal, or that everyone in the school has kind of make a commitment to these what we before called the basic values and principles of such a school. It's really necessary. Okay, and it's always in transition. It's always in evolutions. Yeah, this is for sure. But people have to make a commitment to the basic agreements and principles, how the school is working, or how the interaction of students and teachers is constituted. I think these are some of the most important assumptions. Yep.
Mr. Michael, in democratic schools, can we develop a wide range of competences? And how can this be accomplished?
Yeah, a wide range of competences. This is very true. But the answer to this question also depends, or the understanding of this question depends on the general understanding of competences. Yeah, this is a very tricky thing because there are several different theoretical models how to describe competences. Yeah, competences can be understood as some kind of performance. The students perform what they've learned about whatever. Yeah, so to say, some kind of performance that they have to present. But competences can also be seen as so. This is basically, and I want to add something. Yeah, so it's. In my understanding, in some of the schools I've worked together with, I realized that their understanding of competences, and this is structural for state school presently, is kind of a substitution, or the description of competences is kind of a substitution of marks. Yeah, so it's a hidden way of them showing people how good or bad they are at something. And this understanding of competences is totally inappropriate for democratic schools. The understanding of competences should always, so to say, be a supportive interpretation of competences and the feedback on competences, so to say. And when we take a look at let's say one consenting model of competences, that we have certain competences, self-competences. We even in the model of the sustainable development education, which is a worldwide accepted competence model, we have got this self-competence, the social competence, so to say, and the competence concerning the content, so to say, what is needs to be learned. And then we have a media competence, and we have intercultural competence, and so on and so on. We have several, so to say, different aspects of a global understanding of competences that makes up person or someone, and therefore it is totally necessary to consent on which model of competences should be guiding the school, should be one of the principles of a democratic school, so to say. And as you can imagine, from what I said before, the social competences and self-competences and let's say learning competences, so to say, are really very important competences, especially in democratic schools, because those competences are necessary to create this environment, yeah, where people can develop them or themselves and get to a state of self-determination in creating their learning processes, and also self-determination in decision-making concerning the schools, concerning the necessary decisions making which need to be taken to run the schools. So I think it depends on the understanding of competences, and to summarize this in one sentence, it depends on the understanding of competences. What are they good? What are they good for? What do we use them for? Yeah. What use are we making of competences and on the feedback on competences? On one hand, and which competences are really necessary or important, or should be focused at in the process of transition towards the democratic state.
It is important in any school to keep the balance of personalized learning. How can this be achieved in democratic schools, Professor?
Yeah, okay, this is very true. The balance of personalized learning, I would add, so to say, in this to this sentence, the balance of personalized learning and learning in social configurations and networks, so to say, this in a community, so to say, these balances. I think this is from my own experience in all the schools I've seen. This is a matter of awareness. Yeah. It's first of all, it's a matter of awareness or of self-understanding of the people who are working there, of the people who are running this school. How do we so to say, value those two things? And it should be a good balance of those two things. I said before, we have this shift of paradigm from constructivism to this sorry, now I'm missing the word. Connectivism, sorry. So connectivism. This is a big shift in societies presently. You can notice this in enterprises, in factories, in offices, everywhere, so to say, because it's necessary that people connect and share knowledge and exchange experience and exchange competences in networks to create solutions for complex problems. Yeah, and regarding this general shift in society, regarding this huge shift in the understanding of teaching and learning, I think we have to take this into account to answer this question. Yeah, personalized learning is always a personalized process. Yeah, each and everyone, your learning biography, my learning biography is a very individual and unique process, depending on the input, depending on the experiences, depending on the people, depending on our interests, on the environment and stuff. And so there is this basic process of personalized, unique personalized learning, which is happening all the time. Yeah, we can't avoid it. This is the nature of learning. This is the nature of human being. But we have to embed, so to say, this process of personalized learning into networks. Yeah, and this is what connectivism is about, so to say. Create learning environments in those democratic school settings, so to say, which explicitly offer the opportunity to create learning networks, so to say, and to work on problems which make it necessary that people join their competences and join their skills to solve real problems. Problems not in the understanding of problems, but to solve real challenges, so to say, which are crucial, which are essential to the not only to the learning community but to society, to any social system, so to say. This is how this is one of the potentials of democratic schools presently. I just think this was one of the questions before we had before, so to say. I see this as a space of experience, yeah, a field of experience where we can create this connection of personalized learning, which is happening all the time, and which is essential and which is basically human or anthropological, so to say. Connect this to the understanding of learning in a network, so to say. To create social systems which are related to each other and which are dependent on each other and which share the responsibility in this system, social system of this learning network. And therefore, I think this is pretty obvious. That personalized learning and this learning in networks, so to say, is both are the two sides of the same coin.
Finally, Professor, in which direction do you think the democratic education movement will head in, and how will democratic schools evolve in the future?
Thank you for this question. I was thinking a lot about this question. To answer this question, it might be useful to look back and reflect on the history of democratic education over, let's say, over the last 25 years or even longer backwards, so to say. There were very few schools, which some of them, for example, one of the most prominent democratic schools, Summerhill, will have its 100th birthday anniversary next year. So we will have a conference even at that time. The idea of democratic education and the founding of the democratic schools dates back about 100 years ago already. Yeah, but there were only very few schools over a long period of time. These were really very few examples. But then in the last century, at some point in the 70s, early 60s, late 60s, 70s of the 20th century, the idea, so to say, became more virulent, and started to be more successful and widespread. First in some parts of the world, for example, Israel, and then it moved on to other countries all over the world. And we had a long phase, and now I come to the point, what I want to say. We had a long phase of social experiments, so to say, or where those schools were marginalized by the regular school system. And it was very difficult to found such a school or to create such a learning environment. People had to face a lot of obstacles and difficulties. So it was really a struggle to set up a democratic school. And therefore, it was always difficult for those schools. But at that time when they came up, let's say when the movement got more powerful, this was somehow, let's say, in the 1990s, I would say, in the late 80s and 1990s. There was a process that happened at the same time when neoliberalism started to somehow to occupy the world, as you can say, or to become in the highly developed industrial countries became the model or understanding of economics, so to say. And now to try to answer your question, or to come to the answers to your question, I think it's the movement for democratic education has got two phases for me. It has got this progressive and necessary side of transition towards a better school system. We mentioned all the points which make up a good school system, but it's also at the other side. There's this other side, this danger that democratic schools are somehow starting to play the game of the system, so to say, and follow the same hidden principles, like the highly selective competition-orientated school system in general. Yeah, and I really see this danger. Luan, how much time have we still got?
No, Michael, we have like 50 minutes, so we'll use that for like 50, like question and answer session. So we have like around 50 minutes. So you have time. You can take your time. That's fine.
Yeah. I would like to mention a personal experience to illustrate that. Okay. So from always I've said, or we have discussed before, it's pretty clear that democratic schools are schools which are based on equal rights, no discrimination, acceptance, or to welcome diversity, full inclusion, and so on and so on. So all the basic human rights are guaranteed. And one of the major problems of modern society of the whole world is social and economical inequality. Yeah, and for me personally, from all my experience as a teacher, as an academic teacher trainer, so to say, one of the most important challenges for schools, or tasks, or what values or principles of schools should be to avoid injustice or inequality. Yeah, and I think I don't know very much about the school system in Sri Lanka, whether it's enhancing inequality, but I think it will, because it's the structure of each and every school system, basically all over the world. Yeah, and the democratic school movement has also follows the principle that according to the fundamental idea of democracy, so to say, that all people are equal, and all people have got equal rights, and that there is no inequality in rights, or in inequality socially or economically, or so on and so on. And if a school enhances or even so to say supports inequality, yeah, then it's not a democratic school. And I once had the experience at that democratic school I know pretty well. That was exactly what they did. So to say, they when you start democratic school, you always have to face the situation that you will get students because their parents are totally convinced of this system, and they support it, and they want their kids to go to such a school. And you've got those on the other hand, you can read this in the books about Sudbury Valley School, for example, that you will find those students who failed in the regular system, the state school system, for whatever reason, so to say. Yeah, but they didn't succeed in this system. So you have got such a mixture of people there. And in the regular state school, we have to face this, or we have to realize this process of normalization. This is a basic, fundamental, so to say, principle of state schools, so to say, a process of normalization. Therefore, we have curricula, and therefore we have common standards and stuff like that. So our students do the same thing, or achieve the same thing at the same time and same pace, and so on and so on and so on. And democratic schools should be aware of this tricky, so to say, thing. They should really try to avoid to create systems of injustice, yeah, where they kick out people who are not fit into this system, because it requires people who are very self-directed and self-motivated and things like that. And if a school can't provide the space and the support for kids who are not ready yet for those achievements, it might get very difficult, and schools might even so to say increase inequality, yeah, by selecting only those people who fit into the system, of democratic schooling. And this is for the future, I think the principle of democratic schools, as I understand it, will be successful in the end, because it's for this phase of human evolution, it's the best way of preparing kids for the challenges of society, and provide them with skills, support their personal development and all that. So I think it will be successful in the end, but it's so important to avoid to try to avoid to create a new system of injustice, yeah, of separation, so to say, by selecting all those kids who are capable of being successful in a democratic school setting, and excluding all those who are not, because they need time, they need the space, they need expertise, they need professional teachers who have the competences to support such kids. Yeah, and this is a real problem. So I think we definitely will be successful. The movement will be successful in the end, because it's the only way to achieve the necessary tools, competences, skills, personalities, and so on for the future societies. But we also have to be aware of this. Okay.
Right. Sure. Thank you very much, Michael. So I think
my final word.
I think I have to retire because Synergy used to do it like really well, better than me. The Synergy did it like better than me, so it's time for me to retire. So before retire, so I have to like ask few
Oh my
questions.
God.
So I was receiving plenty of questions from like Facebook and from like messages, emails. So we are receiving plenty of questions. I'll take one by one. This is from Amar from Palestine.
Yes.
So he's asking why Israel is the head of democratic education. Why do you think like Israel plays as a head part in the democratic education? What is the reason for that?
Yeah, this is a very I don't know if I'm not an expert. I visited Israel. I also visited Palestine, by the way. Maybe a friend from Palestine is watching me now. So I also visited Palestine and Israel many times. And I have I might be completely wrong. This is only my personal experience. But for a society, I am talking about Israel now. I don't take any sides. I just try to describe and transcend my own experience. For a society, a highly diverse society like Israel, where people are constantly coming in from all over the world. Yeah, Jews from all over the world are constantly moving to Israel, and they bring in a huge diversity of languages, of cultures, of cultural backgrounds, of rituals, of so on. Okay, there is a strong cultural, common cultural identity, in some parts a religious identity, which holds them together or links them together, which is very, very important, of course. But I think in this case, this is not the full explanation. This is my own interpretation. To hold together, or to somehow to make it possible that such a diverse culture, where always new people are coming in and have to adapt to this culture, have to find their places in this culture. It's the idea of the democratic school is. Even though to mention this aspect, as far as I know, there is a strong collective approach in the Israeli history. The idea of a democratic school is really working to somehow to handle this diversity and handle this constant this cultural multitude, so to say, that no one, at least in the Israeli society, is left behind or feel excluded. And I think this is maybe another focus of democratic education. But I've seen many schools in Israel, and they're working perfectly. For me, I've seen so many beautiful situations where democracy is working. But of course, they're also excluding other people from participating in this process. But this is for me. I'm looking from the outside, so this is my own interpretation from many visits in schools in Israel and Palestine and so on. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Okay. Thank you very much, Michael. So we have another question from Maggie from Canada. So her question is, my goodness, I think in Canada it's 5:30 a.m. So she's asking,
hello,
who developed this structure of democratic schools? So like, how this structure of democratic schools develop? So,
sorry, but can you say it again, please? I didn't get that.
She's asking like, who developed the structure of democratic education, democratic school? Sorry, who developed the structure of democratic school?
Who developed it?
Yeah.
So it's a question about more or less about the history of democratic education.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I think yeah, there were several attempts. I think in Western countries dating back to the beginning of the 20th century. But one of the most prominent example is Summerhill School from Neil. Yeah. In England, so to say, yeah, this somehow Summerhill became the paradigm of democratic schools at an early, very early time. As you can see, it's 100 years old now. It was founded in 1921 or so. And this is the origin, and then it evolved. Yeah, there was a long phase when not very much happened actually, but then another example is Sudbury Valley School in the US, so to say. Summerhill, Neil wrote a lot of books, several books about Summerhill, and there are several books about Sudbury Valley School, so to say, and those were the first examples. So you can read they developed a structure from their everyday experience. So this was the start, so to say. Yeah, they started the school and they made the experience that if we have to make decisions on this or that, we need this structure, and we have some basic principles so that no one is excluded, everyone is participating in the decision-making process and so on. So we have to invent these principles and structures. To mention one example, in most democratic, you will find so-called committees in most democratic schools. Yeah, committees, for example, Justice Committee, which deals with complex situations when people get into an argument or a dispute or something like that. When there is a solution for a personal disagreement needs to be found, or there are financial committees, committees to plan activities outside the schools. So this is a general principle, and I think it evolved from everyday life. Yeah, from the necessity to organize such a school economically, yeah, time-wise, so to say, and human power-wise.
I think, Michael, like you are just about to answer our next question. So next question is from Kali. Kali from South Africa. You know that Kali Rahman. So he's from South Africa.
Yeah,
So,
okay. Yes.
yeah, his question is like he's asking, now you were talking about this committees about democratic school. Is there anything other than these committees, a key 5 features you can see in a democratic school? What, like, can you mention about key 5 features in a democratic school, like to define it as a democratic school?
What do you mean by this? What you heard the teachers?
Now, key five features. It's like features. So key 5 points you can see in a democratic school just by looking at it to identify it as a democratic school.
What does it mean, this expression?
It's like he's telling that now you talk about like justice committee.
Yeah.
Likewise, justice committee. What are the other things you can see in a democratic school to define it like it as a democratic school?
Yes, yeah, okay, sorry, but sometimes I don't get everything you say. Yeah, okay, the most important instrument or tool to run a school is the general assembly, the school meeting, yeah, which takes place once a week or sometimes twice a week, according to that, where potentially all the students and teachers and all people who are involved in this system meet. They have a general assembly, and this assembly has a certain structure. Normally it's run, from what I've seen, it's run by students, so to say. There's an agenda, and they work through this agenda, and they make decisions, and everyone can hand in a question or whatever. Whatever they want to decide on, so they can hand in a complaint or so. And the school, this assembly, the school meeting, so to say, has the right and the power to decide on everything that's going to happen in the school. Yeah, and sometimes they say, okay, we give it to a committee, and they have to decide. But this is the structure, the general structure. So there's a general meeting or assembly, and there are the committees, and yeah, this is it's pretty much like a government in a state. There is, so to say, where there's an assembly of people who were elected, and then you have this certain committees so dealing with, like ministries, so dealing with certain issues. This is the mostly common structure.
Okay, thank you very much, Michael. So since we are running out of time, we are going for the last question.
Yes,
It's
please.
from Mushafik from Qatar University. He's from Qatar, Mushafik. So
From
he's
where?
asked from Qatar. Qatar.
Ah, good.
Okay. So his question is, now he's telling that you are saying that now we were like talking about, when you are talking about democratic schools, we say that we always go according to the majority. So his question is, do you believe that the majority will be the correct choice? Will they take the correct choice, the majority?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Thank you very much for this question. Not democratic schools is kind of a label for highly diverse scenery of schools, and in decision making for a long time, this formal process of voting by majority was pretty common. So yeah, and I think when I get the question right, and we all know that sometimes it's very tricky to follow the majority when it's very small, for example, or when it's difficult to somehow to communicate certain informations and so on and so on. So, for example, take the election when the UK voted on leaving the European Union with such a tiny majority, yeah, and they made such a decision with such a long-term impact on social and economical and whatever life, and therefore we more and more schools move on to the sociocratic principle of decision making, yeah, which basically means that it's not following, or the decision is not made by majorities and minorities, so to say, but by discussing or having a discussion on the topic as long as it's necessary, so that everybody consents in the end. So it's a consensus oriented or consent orientated process of decision making, which is in some way democratic, because when you have to vote on something by majority or minority, or so to say, by majority, of course, then you have this option or that option, and you will decide on this in favor of this option or in favor of that option. And the sociocratic process opens up a field of a process of decision making that takes into account many different aspects of an issue, for example. Yeah, so therefore, many schools I know are now using, or several schools I know are using this new method, a sociocratic method of decision making, instead of the traditional democratic majority-oriented way of decision making. Right. I think this is this is a progression.
Thank you very much, Mike. So I'll take one more question, because questions are coming like really fast. So we have a question from Jenny from Finland. So
wow,
she's
great.
asking, okay. So what she's asking is, how do you think universities should support the concept of democratic education? How do you think the universities should support?
So can you say it again?
What do you think, like, how universities should support the democratic education?
Which city?
Universities, academia. Like universities, like your university, your University of Hamburg, University of like universities, Martin Luther King University.
Yeah, sorry. The understand it's not easy sometimes, because the connection is not very well for me. So the question is, how do universities support this process?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, that's a very good question, so to say, and yeah. makes a certain thing obvious that's also going to happen in democratic schools. We have to, and I am a professor, I'm a regular professor at the German university, so to say, but we don't have, we almost don't have any concepts of democratic education in our curriculum, in our official curriculum, I would like to say. And there are almost no processes of participation for the students. So there are students that don't have any space or any opportunity, or very, very little opportunity to participate in decision making concerning their own progress in learning, or their own curriculum or whatever. So a university is still, at least in Germany, at least from what I know, is something that offers not very much participation for students, and therefore they are used to somehow to like a traditional school, so to say. They are the recipients of what's going to happen there, and we try, beside the official curriculum, to say, me and some of my, very few of my, some of my colleagues and some of the students, we work together and try to create an alternative curriculum, so to say, with alternative workshops and alternative seminars and so on, where we try to set in place those tools of sociocratic decision making, and try to create participative scenarios and learning environments in universities too. But it's not part of the official agenda.
Thank you very much, Michael. So now plenty of questions are coming up. So, but like the time we have is very limited. So before we conclude, I would like to ask like final comments from Synergy. So it's like she worked really hard. So all this time she was preparing all these questions and like setting up the like this program. So it was 100% done by Synergy.
So wonderful. I'm so grateful. This was a very good preparation.
Right. Thank you. So Synergy, so final comments from you?
From me?
No, from
Or from
Synergy?
you?
Yeah.
So sorry.
It was really fun and very informative, and I guess I learned a lot from it. And yeah, it was nice talking to Professor as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Synergy. So Michael, now the plenty of questions are on a queue, so we won't be able to answer them. So can you share share your final thoughts and your contact details if they have any more questions, how to reach you, whether they will email it to you? Okay.
Yes. Okay. Shall I write it down somewhere?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I will write it in the chat maybe. Okay. Just have to. Okay. I just give my email address, right?
Yeah, that's fine.
Wait, this is not right. Okay, check if it's correct.
Now you can share your screen, Michael, so then we can see it.
Yeah, I've done it. Here we are.
All right, so we have so I'll share my screen, so then you can see it clearly. So at this, all right, really, so I'll just, we have to go for chat box.
Very good.
Yeah, so it's, so what we'll do is so I'll just type it, so I'll share it on a screen. So this is his email, so just give me 1 second, so I'll put it in on the line. So what we have, Vicky with doing with technology. All right, so yeah, no, we have to go a little bit down. So till I am like getting ready with that, so I'll tell you what's coming up tomorrow. So tomorrow we'll be having uh, Parami Jayakodi with Marco Koskinen. So it will be a wonderful event because like Parami Jayakodi, she's like only 10 years old. She's a Sri Lankan who have moved to USA. So she's going to talk about bullying in like bullying in education. So what we are going to do is we are going to discuss how to develop uh, like abilities. That means emotional talents in students. That's our main topic. So so what I can do here is okay. So still it's loading. Okay, we have this one. So we are going to share Mr. Mike, Professor Michael Gebauer. Really difficult, like for me, like open it. We are in. So Michael, so till I'm going to prepare this one. So if you have any final comments for the people like who are watching this webinar, so anything you want to like mention them as a final thing?
Okay, I'm still on air, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. So I just want to say thank you very much for all of you that made this possible. And one final comment: I'm really convinced that the idea of democratic education is will be successful in the future, and we will see this transition from traditional system to a more democratic system. There are many places all over the world, regular schools who are already have already started this process step by step, but they're facing challenges. Facing obstacles from the regular state school system, for example. But I think for the well-being of for our future, for a good future, we need this transition in our school systems all over the world. And I think, and one last comment now, which is very important to me. And I've seen, I went to, I visited or attended the conferences on democratic education for many years now. And I'm in this movement now for more than 20 years. And I'm more and more convinced that the real change will not happen in the highly industrialized Western countries right now, but they will happen in countries like India and countries like Sri Lanka and in other parts of the world, where the need for change is much stronger and I think this is a very interesting process to notice that we will see change from many different parts of the world, but not from the highly developed countries now. I think that's for sure. So all those of you who are teachers, who will become teachers wherever you are in the world, so stay confident and enjoy this wonderful profession, and it would be great to support the democratic school movement.
So thank you very much, Michael. So now we are ready to see his yes. So I'm going to share my screen. So I'm going to show his email address, so you can contact Mr. Michael Gebauer. So if you want to like, so it's michael.gebauer at pedagogy.uni.halle.de. So you can ask your, like, you can send your doubts, you can like clarify all the things that you have. So with those contact details. Okay, so it was a wonderful session. So what you're going to do is tomorrow we are going to meet Marco Koskinen. So at the same time, so stay tuned with us and with Parami Jayakodi, a 10 years old child. Like she's going to talk about another like important aspect of education. So first of all, I should thank Synergy Gunathileka for preparing and working hard for all these and to make this event a success.
Thank you, Mr. Man.
And thank you very much, Professor Michael Gebauer, for sparing his valuable time with us. So it was a nice session. So thank you everyone. So we'll meet tomorrow with the same in the same time from with Marco Koskinen from Finland. So have a great evening, some of them morning, afternoon, as well as everyone. So have a good day. Thank you very much.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.